Yeah, we're about to go on.
Sweet. Ready? All right. What's up, guys? Sorry for the technical difficulties. We're here. Welcome to episode 2 of our youth engagement series. I'm your host. I am Chris, and with me today are Charlie and Jesus Christ, it's a long day. Charlie and Amada, who are our two co-hosts. How are you guys doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good. Long day as well, even though it's halfway through. I hope you guys are doing well. Charlie, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Just kind of keeping on, whatever that means for the day-to-day lifestyle. Just got out of the shower, so I'm feeling pretty fresh and ready to see what we have in store for us today. Cena?
Oh, yeah. This is our special guest for today. We call her Beyonce, but you can call her Ms. Teresina Ovi. Cena, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Nice. So with our youth engagement series, we have our challenges. So I will say that we got a little bit of response for our first challenge, which is doing 20 push-ups, but we have decided that we're going to give you guys another week. So get those push-ups in and get them to us. Me, Amada, and Charlie, and we're going to try and convince Teresina to do it with us, but we are going to show you guys our 20 push-ups and our response to the challenges on our Instagram, which is number two feathers _next _generation on Instagram. Make sure you guys check that out. And Cena, do you think you're going to be able to do the push-ups with us or no?
I might be able to do like 5 max. Quarantine has not been nice.
I'm okay with doing any push-ups you can. That goes for everybody out there too. Make sure you gotta do all the push-ups you guys can do and let us know. So first, I want to see how you guys are doing just today, this week. Amada, I can start with you. How are you doing this week? How are you doing today?
Thanks for asking. I'm doing pretty good. I had a lot of work this week, just working at home with my jobs because they're considered essential, so I'm able to work them. Hanging out with the dog in the garden. That's pretty much been the news this week. Trying to make use of the garden and actually get some food from it, hopefully. Charlie, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Just trying to stay busy, have a balance of being productive and chilling out because I feel like kind of like plateauing on the week, even though it's only Tuesday, Wednesday. I don't even know the days anymore. But yeah, plateauing for the week as far as it goes, but hoping to finish the week off strong. And I think this fun engagement series will give me a little bit of momentum to finish strong.
Cena, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing good. It's Wednesday. We had a really great discussion yesterday with chief judges from the Yurok Tribal Court, Judge Abby, and chief judge from the Hoopa Tribal Court, Judge Colgrove. And it was really inspiring, motivational, and just hearing their testimonies through law and their legacies. So this week's been good.
That's great, guys. So we have our first quarantine question for you guys. And if you guys at home want to answer that too, we're going to post it on our comments so you guys can answer and on our Facebook page. Question for you guys is, what have you guys been binge watching? What have you guys been watching, either a show or a movie? And I'm trying to get a list of as many stuff as possible. So what have you guys been watching during this quarantine time?
Well, I guess I'll start us off. I've kind of been trying to make use of Disney Plus because I got it on the free. If you get Verizon Unlimited plan, you can get a year free of Disney Plus. So I've been trying to use that. I watched Onward yesterday, and the day before. It was actually really good and sad. It was one of those Disney movies that's like has a whole scene to it. But that's pretty much what I've been binge watching, is trying to make use of the whole going back and looking at the retro stuff too.
Very nice.
Yeah, I've watched that Onward movie. It's so good. Like, they did a pretty good job of like making it fun for the kids, but also like good for adults. A lot of life lessons in it for sure. I just got the package where you get ESPN Plus, Disney Plus, and Hulu on it. I'm actually like sharing it with my little brother, so shout out to Ryan for that. So, because I'm already like obsessed with the ESPN Plus, like just getting to know the documentary part of athletes and different things like that. So I thought that's definitely right up my alley. As far as Netflix goes, I like to binge watch that show Longmire. What I learned from that is just like how, I don't know, just how media always like kind of depicts a lot of Native people as just like stoic and like super like anti-government type of shit, but stuff. But I think that there's a lot to learn from it, like any show. Take it for what it is. But yeah, for that, I think that's about it right now. Just kind of stuck in those two platforms.
Very nice.
For
How about you,
me,
Teresina?
For me and Netflix, of course, Scandal. I love rewatching Scandal, The Office, All American. On Disney, Disney Plus has been watching a lot of the National Geographic documentaries. So like that Hostile Planet, I think it's called, The Wolves. And so learning a lot like the animals and stuff. And so it's been fun.
Nice. Me, I've been watching at the ESPN Plus, just like Charlie. I've been watching this thing called The Last Dance. It's with Michael Jordan and the '90s Bulls, and how crazy that was. And I now have a goal in life to make my life just as fun as those guys had. I've also been watching a lot of, obviously, The Office, but I'm really hopeful this week to get the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air set on DVD. So I'm gonna watch every single season and watch it again, keep watching it until I become Will Smith. That's my other goal in life. So you guys at home, if you guys have anything that you guys wanna tell us that you guys been watching, any good suggestions for us, anything that you think that we're watching that you don't like, just let us know. We are also open to taking some ideas from you guys and having maybe a movie night or maybe some type of night with you guys and watching something on that. So stay tuned. So to kind of move along to what our theme for this series is, when I told my bosses and I told I guess our coworkers what I plan on doing, the first thing they asked me is like, why do you guys want to do this for the kids? Why do you guys want to have this series for the kids? And the reason I said, my reasoning was, one, so I don't have to be in all those meetings, but two, it was just to have a place where we can talk about ourselves and who we are and what we'd like to talk about, and have an opportunity for the kids that we work with and the people that we are involved with a chance to be who they are and have some fun and talk about who they are. So with our first topic, I thought we'd just go in on that and talk about identity and who we are, what makes us who we are, and little things like that. So my first question to all of you guys is just, what is identity, and what makes you guys who you are? Ahmad, I can start with you.
Alrighty. Well, for me, identity is kind of just, it's kind of a sum of the two questions you're asking. Like, kind of like, I feel like identity is who you are as a person, and that can be from identifying to what morals you have as a person, meaning by like what you believe in, what you stand by, what you've learned, and what you agree with and don't agree with in life, even if it's something you've learned that you might not agree with. I've had situations where I've kind of had people in my life that I've wanted to follow and people in my life that I've not wanted to follow, in a sense. And so that's where I've kind of pick and chose my identity. And can also fall into religion, the creator, what you believe in that sense. But for me, I just kind of find, if I were to summarize identity for myself, it's kind of where I feel with myself, I guess you can say, as a whole, good, as well as like being on how do I put it into words, having your like emotional, mental, kind of all of that in a balance too with your identity, and knowing how each of those kind of work, what gets you mad, what gets you sad. But yeah, that's kind of how I connect to identity.
Nice. Charlie, what about you? What's identity to you?
That's a heavy question, a lot to unpack, but if like for the sake of conversation, I feel like the identity can mean a lot of different things. I think categorically, I think who I am is like who I am spiritually, and then who am I like socially, who am I emotionally, like all the different facets of what makes us who we are. And also like the environment has a lot to do with who we are, because I feel like I'm definitely a different person just from being here out here on the coast, kind of like away from my Aboriginal home. And so like although I'm still Hoopa, Yurok, and Kaduk, like that doesn't change, just like where I live changes temporarily. And so I think that is a factor that oftentimes doesn't get like talked about when we talk about identity, is just like place and how place impacts who we are, and how that like the greater society kind of influences and blurs who you can be when you get like kind of caught up in the greater society. So I think that is like the closest way I can answer it. I had something else I was going to say, but I think that's best I can answer. That's a heavy question, Chris. Come out swinging.
That's the plan. Teresina, what do you have for identity? What do you think it is to you?
Some may define identity as like a distinguish of character or personality of an individual in relationship that is established through psychological identity. But for me, identity is a sense of belonging to this land and what I do during this time, date, and place on this earth, in this physical world, and that my identity is linked through my ancestors by umbilical connection, meaning my connection to my mother and to my grandmothers and great grandmothers and so on and so forth. So me as a human being, or as a spirit being within this human body, my connection and my identity is through my ancestors and how I choose to live and represent myself, and trying my best to survive in this world and to live. So that's my identity.
That was poetic. I like that. For me, identity is something that I wouldn't necessarily say struggled with my entire life, but it's something that I have been trying to find out. So, and it's just based on where my environmental factors, like Charlie said, are just who I am, and trying to make the sense in the world, basically. So for me, identity, and the reason I brought this up for our first kind of talk, is a lot of people do not really know who they are or who their identity they're trying to find out. And the process of finding out your identity is a lifelong process. So that kind of leads me on to my next question, is like, how I kind of want to know more about you guys and how you got to where you are, got to be the type of people you are, and whether it was missteps or whether it was good things that happened, just what kind of defined your identity, and what helped you, or what would someone who's looking for, as some of our kids, what would help them try and find their identity and try and be their own person?
We'll follow the same order each time too for the questions, if that's okay.
That works for me.
Sweet. Will you reiterate the question again? Kind of like what, for me, how I'm understanding it is how I've kind of found my identity, in a sense, is I've looked to mentors a lot of my life. And I know a lot of people like think you're maybe, well, no, it just depends who you are, but not necessarily my household, my mom or dad, in the sense. I've looked to other people outside of my family because I've had others raise me throughout my family. So I've had a lot of different leaders, and I look to them for different stuff. One of my uncles I go to a lot for my athletics and sports and kind of fighting my leadership in that sense. My uncle, and then there's another uncle I go to for like academics and all of that sense, culture-based stuff. But for me, growing up, when I've had questions a lot about my identity and what I necessarily believe in, or all of that, in a sense, as like, I liked how Teresina said, like a spirit living in a human body. That was kind of like, whoa. But in that sense, I've kind of just looked to leaders and mentors, even coaches. Now I've gone back and done coaching for Fortuna High for soccer, just because those leaders have meant a lot to me in my life. And I want to give back in a sense of mentoring in that way for youth and coaching. So I've tried to do it in a multiple sense of growing up, and then trying to reiterate it in my adult life so far.
Yeah, what was the question again? I got lost.
basically what kind of helped shape your identity, and how can you help people who don't like trying to figure out their identity? Like what would help them trying to find their own identity?
So I feel like what shaped my identity is like my family. Like I have 5 siblings, so like I had to either wake up and eat breakfast or I'd sleep and miss out, you know. So I think being in a setting where you really had to kind of coexist to make sure that you got what you need, like your basic needs met, helped me like develop a sense of autonomy or agency to be like, well, if I don't do it, who will, type of thing. But I think it's a lot easier to say that because like I do have a pretty strong support system at both my parents, you know, like always being able to depend on them. And also just like my relationship to my culture, I think helped me like be grounded. And no matter what, and there's times where I was like, man, I don't want to like go to dances this week. I want to hang out with my friends. I want to be this normal kid, like where I see like a lot of my people who aren't necessarily involved in ceremonies, like hanging out and like making memories. And like I had to go to ceremonies. Like I started like having some issues like in high school where I was like, can I just like not, you know, like, and I appreciate like the flexibility because like thinking about it now, I was like a little turd, you know. So I was just like, you know, there's definitely like hiccups here and there, but just having that option to like depend on that whenever I needed it. And to the point where like, you know, I ventured out into school, and school is another influence that kind of kept me going. Is just like athletics too, like get that 2.0. And my parents were like, well, you got to get a 3.0. Like they set the bar a little bit higher because 2.0 is pretty basic, you know. So they're like, no, you can, like they just pushed us, you know, and like in a nurturing way. And so those like athletics is a huge part of it, and then that helps my academics, and then, you know, just putting myself in a good position to succeed. And education is probably one of the things that was put pretty consistently on my, like in my front of my head, like you got to go to college. What do you mean? Like there's no option. And then and it was that experience where I was like, damn, I love my culture. Like I was such a little turd. Like why did I have to be that way? Like I didn't know how good I had it until I didn't have that access anymore. And so that really shaped who I am. And then so having these like epiphanies kind of really like, dang, like I'm spoiled in a lot of different ways. So like, how do I give kids who don't have that same privilege the same, if not better opportunity or interventions to make sure that they have a fighting chance? Because I think that's all we want is just a fighting chance at having options in life. So I think that's some of the things that contribute to who I am today.
How about you, Sina?
For me, what has helped define my identity is definitely my upbringing through family on both sides, my biological parents, but also, you know, my spiritual family, you know, the dance families, relationships that have developed throughout the years in my life. But when it comes down to it, it's about, for me, identity is how do I want to represent myself? And, you know, our ancestors sacrificed so much for us to be here today. So what can I do to improve, or what can I do to help leave this world a little bit better than when I first came? So that identity piece, but also like on a tribal side of it, it's, you know, going to your tribal enrollment office, if that's available, and asking for your family tree and tying that to your connection to villages or, you know, your clans. And if people may not have access to tribal enrollment, go to the BIA and get those documents, because your ancestors that have given their lives and their resiliency factors protect us today. And so that's, for me, defines my identity is through my ancestors and their sacrifices, and who I surround myself with and how I live my life. But of course, I'm human. I make mistakes. I've made plenty of mistakes. I'm not perfect, but learning from those mistakes and turning the challenges into strengths.
I love that. You guys said you guys made mistakes. You were little turds. Like those are stuff that some people will see as like negative things. But honestly, I was a sarcastic little brat. Like my mom would tell you, I would be mean, not be mean to my mom, but me and my mom would like have some funny arguments if you were watching. So like I was just to say that identity, like there are things that you can think of maybe negative, but they're not. Like if you can be like Charlie said, a little turd, or Tina said like you made mistakes. Like those make you, those are part of your identity. And that kind of goes into my next question is like, people like talk about your identity, think it's only like the good stuff or like your good qualities or stuff that you can advertise. I know that some kids, they'll look at me and they'll be like, I don't know who I am because I have these, people think I'm not a good person, or people think I'm this, people think I'm that. So what I am kind of asking you guys is, what do you guys have to say to that? Like, what do you guys have to say to someone who doesn't know or is lost or doesn't know their identity because they think that they are not what they really are?
Well, for me, I guess I would say, like you said, it's a lifelong process. You're not gonna snap one day and be like, this is who I am. This is what you know what I mean? It's like, you kind of, life really shapes who you are, the stuff that you go through. I've had challenges too, or necessarily I may not have responded the right way or done the right thing. People have opinions, even people that are close to you might have situations, but it's kind of how you come out of that situation, and you know within yourself what right and wrong is. And that's kind of how I guide myself. Like, it is, yes, there is advice that you can get from others, but I feel like inside your gut, you always have that moral compass of right and wrong. And that's kind of how I necessarily would say kind of look into that, but also just diving in within culture. I necessarily didn't have parents that took me to ceremony, did all of that stuff with me one-on-one growing up. And so that was a lot of like identity issues that I've had myself too done language classes, but I also was in foster care for a little bit and I switched around with families. And so I felt like that was a really big culture loss as well. And so just with a little bit of stuff that I've gone through, I've had to go and kind of find myself within that, but it's also surrounding yourself with those people. I did like some of the summer camps for UIHS, just diving back into that cultural aspect too was really nice for me in college. But that's kind of how I would recommend it, is just diving into those ideas, those passions, what you feel, what you're kind of scared of too.
I think one thing for, like, if I were to give advice, is just kind of having compassion for yourselves. Like, I think a lot of times it's easy to blame yourself for like, oh, this is my fault. Like, I'm the common denominator in all the crazy things that happen in my life. Like, how do I change myself? And that's like a survivorship mentality to like, that's what maybe have gotten your parents or your grandparents to the place where they are. But I think it's all according to each one of our healing processes. We all come from a pretty traumatic experience somewhere along the line. Even for fellow non-natives, they come from some pretty crazy backgrounds themselves. And so like, we're all like on this healing timeline. And so just having empathy for yourself as well as your loved ones, because each one of us has their own crazy story, I feel like. And so maybe that's a part of the journey too, is just like having hard conversations. A lot of times we tend to like kind of ignore and escape from those interactions because they're painful. Like, it is painful. I'm not going to say that it's not, but within that pain can come some like really positive healing. Like, I think a lot of times it's just like, well, it's just misunderstanding or miscommunication or those little things that really hinder, and it could really turn a wound into something that's infected, and then it gets even worse. So I think if you think of it in the terms of healing, I think it'll help you get to where you need to be in this moment in time. And there's some things that could just be really unforgivable, but coming to some sort of like compromise, like, well, that's fine. Like, if that's how you want to continue to be, then like, that's on you. But like, I got to relieve myself and look out for my own self if that's how you're going to be. So just compassion for yourself and others, and just respecting yourself and others. And I think using those type of like words of wisdom could help you through some times where you didn't ever think you'd get through. And so there's just a little bit of wisdom or food for thought.
For me, if somebody's looking to help build their identity, or who they are and where they come from, it's about remembering that we're 100% human being first. That don't understand like where the blood quantums come in, and like how that shapes, and how the government stepped in and said, oh, you're only this amount of Native American, you're only this amount of bloodline. But remember that it's about being human. You're a human being first, and how we choose to walk through this world. And definitely like taking your experiences, like we are not our surroundings, you know, growing for youth, including myself, who grew up, whether it was chemical dependency, whether it was domestic violence, whether it was poverty, that's not our identity. That is struggles that we have overcome or will continue to overcome. And by doing that, of course, you know, education, whether it's traditional education or Western education, learning the reasons how we come to be through historical trauma and grief, through the boarding school era, and how that is passed down will help, for me personally, it will help further develop your identity. And figuring out where these isms have come from, whether disease or discriminations, figuring out those root causes and then building from that will help with identity. So, you know, how just learning the history and learning it not just from textbooks, learn from your people, whether it's people, families from your villages or other villages, learn from your people, because our history is deep rooted in our oral traditional history.
That's great. I love how you said that. I really kind of keyed on the whole like having self-empathy and having this good idea about yourself and saying that that is who you are and you like it, because there are certain things that you're conditioned not to like. Like I am a son of a strong Native woman and a son of a strong Black man. Those are two cultures that have been through the most and have been battled and beaten and gotten through and resilient. I would want to be any other person just because it makes me who I am. And I know that there are people who are trying to struggle who they are. That's like finding out who you are, finding out all the history is going to be big on finding out not even your personal history, just history around us. So I'm gonna make this question gonna be kind of a little lighthearted for you guys to kind of get it away from all the serious stuff, because I know Charlie just is all sweating over there. So what is one part of your identity that you like that people make fun of? So I'll give you guys an example. My part is like my beard. I grow hair really, really fast. This is something I love. This is something that I am very, very proud of. But I have people who are like, oh, I don't know. You kind of look better without a beard. I don't know. And then people will be talking. I've had people told me for this thing even to be my my DJ name to be DJ Fit Caveman, DJ Furface, you know, like something with a beard. But it's part of my identity and I love it. So like just something like that. It's kind of something fun that you guys think, or not something fun, but something that you guys love that kind of shows that it doesn't matter what people think of you. Like you love yourself, you love that identity, part about your identity. It doesn't matter. So do you guys have anything? Or you guys gonna look at my beard the entire time?
I can start off again if we're going back around, but I would say for me it would be, I don't know, in the sense of like, I guess it would be kind of being made, I was a tomboy growing up and I still have those characteristics, and so I feel that is something that I've always been teased about, and the outgoing personality that comes with that, of wanting to do a lot of like really outgoing stuff and always be with the boys and kind of do that. And they're like, no, I even wanted to play football at one time. And I got talked down from that. But I think that's just kind of something.
What you, Charlie?
I mean, piggybacking off your beard, bro, I can't get nuts. People be like, why you got that on your face? Like, you need to get rid of it. I'm like, bro, I honestly don't have to shave that often. So like, it's not like a habit that I've created yet, because it's not like I get, you know, some fur on my face, you know, it's just like, oh shit, yep. It's been 2 months. I better clean up a little bit. So it's like kind of irregular, but I feel like something that I get like, not ridiculed, but like harassed about is just how much I like to sleep. I love to sleep. Like I like to chill, I guess can be like interpreted as like something I'm like, man, why can't you just love me for being a sleepy person? But I feel like that in itself, I feel like I slept a lot just to like escape from some of the things that I was going through like growing up. So like it carries over. It's like a coping mechanism. So like I own like, yeah, I never seen the end of that movie because I fell asleep. Like go figure. So I think that's another thing that I get teased about a lot is like, yeah, you fell asleep. I'm like, yeah, because I was tired. Like that's what you do.
For me, there's a couple areas. One is my size and color. Like I got picked on a lot because I was always a lot darker, a lot bigger than my classmates, family members, even like people who are way older than me. And then like being able to, palm a ball in 6th grade or like, outplaying the guys in the basketball court, that was like, my size was like, I was really picked on. I struggled with self-esteem because of it. But then I turned it around and use it to my advantage to where I was able, came to love shot put and discus for track, and then eventually threw my way to a full athletic scholarship to the East Coast. But another area is my humor. I think I'm pretty funny. I like to think that. And then sometimes, yeah, you just have to have a thick skin. I grew up with like, the teachings of the world can be challenging. The world can be very hurtful at times. So you're going to have a thick skin. So you're going to get picked on inside the house and outside the house. So my family, like really, like it's brutal when you come to the house during family gatherings because like everything's out in the open for jokes. There's no, everything's fair game. So you have to have a thick skin coming over. And I think that really quick-witted jabbing is essential. And then just, knowing the difference between being funny and then kind of like being hurtful is like a really fine line, especially to native humor too, because we find humor in like the most traumatic events too. So yeah, definitely humor, size and humor.
Well, I think that might be one of our challenges 1 week. See if you can beat Teresina in a game of basketball.
I can't say no more now.
But that everything you guys said has been on point. Like there are certain things that make you you, whether it is something that you're made fun of or no. I don't care. Like we're gonna see how big my beard can get before I have to shave it off, just because I like it. We're gonna see how much Charlie can sleep on one of these episodes. Like we might have to see a lot of stuff. It's just they make us who we are, and they make us who we use this stuff, whether it's people say it's good or people it's bad, we use this as a stepping stone to get to where we want to be. I know that for me, I'm kind of like with Teresina. Like I have a weird sense of humor. I'm a sarcastic little brat. Like I use that to my advantage, and I use it when I feel uncomfortable. I use it when I am upset. I use it whenever I want to, and it's something that is a part of me and a part of where I got to where I was. And I'm gonna get to the master's program with being a smartass. Excuse me, being sarcastic. There you go. Sorry guys out there. But that kind of goes into my next question is just how has there been a time where you can use what people will maybe see as faults to your advantage, or to see as your identity because you know your identity, or because you have this kind of confidence of who you are? Does that make sense, or should I ask it again?
Maybe give your example first and then we'll follow.
Well, okay. Well, my example was the way I use my humor, the way I use my sarcasm. Is just people think that it cannot be good or can be detrimental, or I could be a distraction or this or that. And I use that to my advantage. I use that to get to where I want to be, just because it's something that is a part of my identity and a part of what got me to where I am. Does that kind of help you guys out?
Yeah. I guess I can kind of relate to that in a sense with humor. I feel like I try to make the situations when you feel like people are uncomfortable or you're uncomfortable, really easing the tension with that. But yeah, I feel like also, I guess to just trying to set an example when you necessarily don't feel that a lot of people, it might not even feel that people aren't believing in you. It might just be yourself feeling that way. But whenever I feel that way too, just trying to turn it around into that perseverance of like in yourself too. Because I think sometimes I just think that when it's not really true also.
For me, you know, especially if I'm using an example of sleep, I feel like people get used to me being sleepy or tired, and so they're like, so like it kind of like lowers their expectation, and so that I can surpass and like exceed their like initial ideas. So like I remember growing up, like I'd be like napping inside, and you know the brothers are outside playing basketball, and they're like, "Man, you're sleeping forever. Like, why are you sleeping?" I'm like, "I don't know. I was tired. Like, what do you want from me?" And then they're like, "Well, you won't want to play." Then I'll go out and I'll hoop them up. You know, like, yeah, like this tired kid just beat you. Your game's tired. You know, like just like using it kind of like as like a almost as like fuel. You know, like, well, you know, heck with that. I'm not gonna just like let them think I'm this like tired kid. Like I'll come out and show you who's tired type of mentality. So I kind of use it in that sense. Like I'll just own it, you know, as a way to like, well, maybe they won't like attack me for my sleepiness anymore because, you know, I use that against them now. And I always used to say like, I'm getting taller. I'm getting bigger than you. Like there's like a whole bunch of myths about like if you sleep it's because you're growing. So I'd always like, I'd use that one up pretty often.
It kind of glitched out a little bit on my side, Chris. Can you reiterate the question?
Just how you can use stuff that people may see as detrimental or like deficit, how you can use that to your advantage because it is a part of your identity and it is something that is a part of who you are.
I think if a person is going through struggles or, you know, there's so much social media and in-person bullying going on, kind of figure out what are they picking at and turn that to an advantage. Like one of mine was using my size. Like I would always try to like shrink myself like to and like hunch down and be smaller just because I was so tall. But now and like growing and having my support system and looking to celebrities like Queen Latifah or Oprah, and like, wow, she's big and beautiful, I want to be big and beautiful. So taking what may look like a weakness or a deficit or a challenge and turn it into a positive. So had I not turned my size and strength and my physical body into a strength, who knows if I would have made it to college or got a full athletic ride for throwing shot put and discus. Who knows where I would be. But turning what seemed like a deficit or seemed like a negative, turning it into a positive, just like we're all sharing, turning it into a positive and how you can capitalize on whatever that challenge may be. So yeah, definitely sports was my outlet, throwing, shot put and discus, basketball, volleyball, all that. And don't waste your talent, don't waste your skills, and just build on it and become better.
You need to write all this stuff down so we can have a bunch of quotes for Teresina. I'm gonna post on Instagram or something. Those are great. So I guess for our final question as we wrap it up, what do you guys have to say to people who want to kind of learn more about themselves, learn more about who they are and their identity? And what do you think could help them along their journey, or help them to find out who they are or who they can reach out to, who they can help them along their way?
For me, I have tried to ask like close family members, just some stories, history that's happened in the past, just different stuff that for me, I didn't have my mom to ask right off the bat, just because she's kind of she's doing some stuff right now on her own journey. But I've always had like elders to tell me stories doing their thing. And so that's pretty much kind of how I get advice and get more like kind of when I need to get turned around and get geared towards another way. But I think just finding your identity too, kind of with the sense of maybe going to, if you know where your tribe you are affiliated with, going and doing that. I've done that and gotten paperwork just to double check who you're related to. my uncles and stuff always are like, that's your cousin, that's your cousin, that's your, like always doing that stuff. My Uncle Julian's like always doing that to me, but I think it's fun too, just to have a little moral compass too. And I even did the silly ancestry thing a few years back, and that was kind of very interesting to find some results from that too. But I've just done some different stuff just to explore and see that from that perspective.
Yeah, I think that first, I think you'd have to be ready to like learn who you are. I think a lot of times it could be even further traumatic to just be like, what? Like, I never knew that. Like, so you just definitely got to be like, check in with yourself and make sure that you're like ready to hear anything, because a lot of things can be revealed when you start diving deep. And then just like letting your curiosity follow you, like lead you, like, dang, I just wonder why this was something my mom always said. So like, let me go talk to this person because that's someone who's always like kind of cited in the conversation. So let me go talk to them. And then that person be like, oh yeah, I used to like be best friends, and this is something that I knew. And and so like just like kind of following that from like a community side. And like Amada had said, there's different ways you can go to like tribal enrollment, like if you know where you like what tribal affiliation you have, and then just like kind of finding that, and then just letting that curiosity lead you in your journey of healing, because I think that has a lot to do with it too, because then you're building community, like you're rebuilding community with the people who your parents or your uncles, aunts, cousins kind of grew up with. I think that's something that helps me, is just having casual conversations with people who my mom grew up with, my dad grew up with, and just hearing positive stories, because like a lot of times you only remember the negative thing. I think that's what's interesting about the human brain, is like it's like Velcro. Like you'll hear the negative thing, and then that'll be in your memory forever. But the positive interactions are just like so easily forgotten. And so I think that's important, just to follow your curiosity in your heart, and then kind of be vulnerable, be willing to be vulnerable, and that'll help you like grow and hopefully grow into the person you're happy with.
Yeah, and just remembering that we're human being first, we're a spirit within this physical body, and that we're here to make memories and to share stories and to collect for our future generations, and inputting that into them. So when one day we become ancestors, like we can look back and like, wow, like this is the moves that we made in this lifetime will further impact and move forward for the prosperity and contribution to our people. And just remembering that our connection to community, culture, language, the environment, especially, because that's where we come from. And finding those connections, just like whether it's in your family, whether it's in the community, dance leaders, regalia makers, Indian doctors, these different roles that we have, and how they have lived their life and their contributions, their responsibility and contributions to the community, and modeling that after us. So for a lot of kids, maybe if they don't necessarily know who their family or extended family are, go to your villages, look for those families. If they're not villages, go to the different clans, because somewhere along the way throughout the generations, whether it's the elders, whether it's our parents' generation, they're going to know who our family are, and they can share stories to help build that identity. And we can take and use that to capitalize on that, and to really contribute back.
Yeah, that's great. And I'll end it with kind of my thoughts. Just you are you are your own person, you are a human, you are whatever makes you the way you are, and you get to decide where you want to be and who you want to be. You get to you are, this is why they call it, it's like self-identity and identity, because it's who you are. And we us four have been through totally different lives and totally different like stuff, but we are all who we are. We're all happy with it. We're all great with it. And we're still learning who we are, and we're not done, and we still got a long way to go. So thank you guys for being with me on this talk. Thank you guys for talking about yourselves and having some kind of a deep conversation, but also a fun conversation. Any final thoughts that you guys have to say before we wrap it up?
Thanks for diving into some kind of deep questions because it's kind of nice to come back to the root of things too for myself and just to reevaluate those things too as I'm sitting at home doing a lot of time to think as well. So,
Yeah, I think that these conversations, like you'd mentioned just a second ago, it's ongoing. You know, that by no means are we saying we got our identity under control. Like we figured it out, we cracked the code, because it's ongoing. It's a lifelong journey of learning and healing and growing. So definitely want to emphasize that. And yeah, this is a part of that process. Like, damn, these are questions that I feel like I should have like ready to go, but like it makes me reflect and like reiterate and rephrase and really reflect. So thank you for that.
Yeah, just it's a lifelong process, and the more we're able to connect to our soul, our spirit, our entity, and then on this journey of self-love and how do we love ourselves and how do we love others, and finding that balance of identity and self-love and connection and responsibility to community.
Perfect. And if I will suggest to everybody out there, if you have doubts, you have anything that you are trying to figure out about your identity, the best thing you can do is talk to people. We have us having this conversation right now had me like really think about myself and not just like look at a wall and be like, who am I? Like I really thought about what made me who I am. So if you guys are wanting to have that conversation or wanting to really figure out who you are, find someone that you trust, find someone that you want to talk to and that's going to talk to you, and go ahead, go at them. Like, you're not going to annoy them, trust me. So as we finish up, I have some, I want some reminders for you guys that we have a lot more coming for the youth engagement series. For our, to kind of go in with our theme of identity, for tomorrow, we have a cooking show for you guys with Chef Bubba. He cooked something up for you guys, and we're gonna show a little hint on our Instagram, so make sure you guys check that out. But me and Omada went and he cooked something for us, and so we're gonna show that. We also have our interview with our Two Feather staff, and we'll starting next week with our the face of Two Feathers, basically, Mr. Virgil Moorhead, or Dr. Virgil Moorhead. You're gonna yell at me for not saying doctor, but we'll have him next week. And also want to advertise, make sure you guys check out our speaker series on our Two Feathers Facebook page and on our YouTube. Make sure you guys check that out. There is one tomorrow and one on Friday, so we will have those out for you guys. And then we will be back next week for the youth engagement series on Tuesday at 1 o'clock instead of Wednesday. So make sure you guys check us out as well. So good. See you guys on Tuesday.
Later.
See you guys.